And finally, part 4 of our race and economic outcomes, looking at some solutions. So if you've already read Ta-Nehisi Coates' Case for Reparations, that Atlantic essay that is very famous and is very important, Ta-Nehisi Coates is right here, probably the most prominent, or one of the most prominent Black intellectuals of our day. You know his argument, but it's basically this. Look, even without slavery, and of course slavery is a very important thing to talk about, but even just 20th century treatment of Black Americans alone, we can think about a culture of theft, a culture of two Americas, a culture of redlining, limited access to the wealth creation that whites have for Blacks. And indeed, continuing in some cases to this day, differential treatment under the law depending on the color of your skin. So Coates will make the case for racial reparations, which is one of the many sort of solutions or policies being batted about. And he talks about Israel's success with reparations early in its nation's history. So it's been done before. So now let's turn our face towards solutions. We can talk about individual solutions first. Of course, as individuals, we're all part of the system that either upholds or destroys the structures of oppression. And so I want to just mention that our involvement in our individual minute actions from day to day might not seem important, but they are a part of the system. So if you are interested in some solutions, come to grips with your own biases. You've already taken a race and a gender implicit association test, but maybe take another one, or maybe have people around you take them. They're very interesting and good fodder for conversation. Work to reduce our microaggressions and help others do the same. These are very tangible ways, not always the most comfortable, to come to terms with our own shortcomings, but check out the Seattle Times for a very nice and real and down-to-earth and balanced discussion of microaggressions and why talking about them matters. Learn to talk about race and other hard things well. Engage on the topic. So here's a fun bot that helps you practice uncomfortable conversations with people of different backgrounds. It's not really a joke. Read Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. Very important in our day of division and hatred of the other political party or whatever it is. There's some real gems in here, and it's a very short book, and it's fun to read. Get proximate. Get close to the other. We're in silos these days. Can you get closer to people unlike you? Work towards policy change locally or bigger. One of the most important things is to think about your own accountability. How, if you're serious about this, how will you keep yourself accountable to growth? Because inertia will hold you back. And from the perspective of larger economic policy, again, Ta-Nehisi Coates makes the case for reparations. Some are making the case for what are called baby bonds, a savings certificate given to babies at birth, a sort of share in the wealth of America. We know in Ta-Nehisi Coates' essays what some of the arguments for reparations are. There hasn't been work done in actual nuts and bolts of the policy because it's still so divisive for people to talk about. But some structural reforms that are a little easier to talk about and get past: criminal justice reform. There's some real movement in this area lately. If you're more interested, look at Angela Davis and some other scholars who are doing good work writing about criminal justice reform. The movie 13th also talks about some of these important scholars and activists. Education reform. Getting access. Affirmative action is dead, but maybe it shouldn't be. Maybe that discussion needs to happen again. Busing, integration. It is said that these days, in the 21st century, schools in America are more segregated than they ever were. So this has real effects. Access to credit, right? There's some issue here. and remains some issues. Housing markets. Redlining is officially illegal, but there's some evidence that this kind of stuff still happens on the down low. And maybe you can think of the solution that is going to be the one that Republicans and Democrats can agree to. In general, education seems to be that type of policy that both sides agree on because it's equitable and it's also about opportunity and hard work. Getting those together tends to make it more politically palatable for both sides. So those are some of the many developing solutions. Of course, with the COVID-19 crisis, we've got other things to worry about, but there certainly are structural and racial divisions that are coming out of COVID-19 that will need to be dealt with. Stay tuned.